broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, welcome to episode 1 of Can You Believe It? This is a podcast that I've wanted to do for a while, just because I love talking about Arsenal and it's just something I'm really passionate about. Football is obviously the main sport that I'm really invested in. I do like other sports, and obviously being an Arsenal fan, there is a lot to talk about. So even though that this podcast at the time of recording is being recorded during a international break, but a lot has happened in the world of Arsenal in the last few weeks, so I'm going to talk about it. So just a rundown of what the episode is going to be today. I'm going to talk about Thomas Partey, of course, because, I mean, how could you not talk about him, especially since he's our marquee signing of the summer, and fans are really excited about it, including myself. So that is something we'll talk about. We're also talking about the Edu and Arteta videos. They said some really nice stuff, really good stuff, that I think is worth mentioning and worth repeating. We'll talk about outgoings. So Lucas Torreira and Matteo Guendouzi are gone to Atletico and Hertha Berlin, respectively. So we'll talk about them, what their impacts are, what the future may be for both players. And then, obviously, now we're in an international break, as I mentioned previously. We'll talk about our international players, some Bukayo Saka talk, which will be good. And finally, we'll discuss the Arsene Wenger interview. There's a couple of snippets that I want to mention in there. So yeah, let's get into it. As I mentioned at the start of the show, Thomas Partey has signed for Arsenal. We paid his release clause on deadline day. Now, I think a lot of fans, including myself, were actually a bit found it a bit funny, just because Arsenal could have signed Thomas Partey whenever they wanted because of the release clause, but waiting until deadline day when Atletico Madrid couldn't bring in anyone else. So it is a bit of a shithousery move from Arsenal, but I think it's something that we've kind of needed to do for a long time. But he is now an Arsenal player, our new number 18, and I'm really excited to watch him play. When you watch Thomas Partey play, you see that he's just very good at everything, and the kind of stats really back that up. I think the main thing that he's really elite at, he's got a very good ability to beat a man. So, and holding onto the ball, he doesn't really get tackled a lot, and that is something that Arsenal kind of needed, like a presence in midfield. I know it's very stereotypical to compare him to Patrick Vieira, just because of, the stature, the type of player he is. But I think for a while, Arsenal players, Cazorla aside, but he's kind of a different type of player, have really been easy to press off the ball. You think about even Cazorla himself. I remember a North London derby. I think it was in 2015-16, where he got pressed out of the game by Dele Alli. I think he was ill, but I think Dele Alli and Christian Eriksen really pressed him that day. I remember. And you think of other midfielders like Jack Wilshere and even our current coach, Mikel Arteta. They've been easy to press. They needed a lot of time on the ball, and I think Partey is much more capable of, if he is being pressed, keeping hold of the ball, which I think Arsenal kind of needed, because I mean, Granit Xhaka is a good player who can do good ball progression, very similar to Thomas Partey in that respect, but I don't think he's as physical and as athletic as Thomas Partey. I think Partey, you try and press Thomas Partey, he's not going to get easily pressed and easily turn over the ball compared to Granit Xhaka. I mean, you watched the Liverpool game this season and you away, and you watched about Xhaka, and Xhaka struggled in that game because he had been clearly targeted by Liverpool's press, and obviously we like to pass from the back. So that is something that is good about Partey. He's also he's got good defensive numbers, better than current Arsenal midfielders, which is good. But I think a lot of people see him as a DM, and I think that's a real disservice to the talent he has. I think if you use him as a pure DM, I think you're still going to struggle, I think, when going forward. I think one of the things that we've lacked is ball progression and creativity going forward. And I think if you stick Partey at DM with two midfielders beside him, I think you may get a bit stuck. I mean, I guess it depends on which midfielders they are, but I'd like to see him kind of in tandem with Dani Ceballos in a 4-3-3, just bursting forward box to box. He's a very good dribbler of the ball, which Arsenal have lacked for years. There was the summer of, I think the season 2017-18, we lost a lot of dribblers on the ball. We lost Sanchez, we lost Cazorla, we lost Jack Wilshere, and these were all players that could carry with the ball, dribble very well. Alexis obviously wasn't a central midfielder, but Cazorla and Wilshere were. And then obviously you had Iwobi who did it in different ways, but he was more of a ball carrier and then wouldn't really dribble past a lot of people. Partey is much more of a will beat a man, will dribble, push the ball forward, which could help Arsenal in the future. We've struggled to create against lower teams, and being able to dribble the ball forward will help us. And I think it will also free up Dani Ceballos as well. I think I'm one of the people here who actually really likes Dani Ceballos. I think he's got his sceptics, and I think people do struggle to think he's really elite, but I think he's really a decent player, and I think he would get in my team every week. I'm pretty sure I would probably put him before Partey came in as our best midfielder. And I think he does a lot of good work. I think in the Liverpool game he showed some areas where I think you just don't get with Mohamed El Neni, with Granit Xhaka, and it's just being able to produce those line-splitting passes, like the chances to Lacazette actually unfortunately fumbled. But yeah, I think Thomas Partey will improve our midfield. It's going to be very interesting to see where Mikel Arteta plays him. Personally, for me, I hope he plays in a 4-3-3 with a bigger license to go forward. I'm not saying get into the box Aaron Ramsey style, but I don't want him to be a pure defensive midfielder. I think that's a waste of his talent. And I think in a Simeone system, you're asked to defend a lot, and you were asked to play in a deep block, and Simeone's side set up really well against pretty much most big teams. And I remember the second leg against Liverpool, he was absolutely monstrous. But if you've got the ability to dribble, go past a man, I think you should use it, especially in this Arsenal team where it's very one-note and very pedestrian. And that is something that Partey will bring, is that he's not a pedestrian. He is someone who will go forward very well, and he will speed up our midfield. He will be a presence in midfield, and that is something that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think if we're talking about some weaknesses, I think the main weaknesses are just about the financials and the age. I think they're the only concerns that I can see with Partey, because I think he's a good player, but he's not going to get any better than he is. He could get better, because you don't know if the Atletico way has held him back, and he's actually he goes very, not supernova, but like he's freed up more to do the stuff that he's really good at that wasn't able to be seen in a Simeone side. But I think he's not going to get any younger. We've paid a big contract for him, and a long contract for him. Obviously, 27 is not old at all. I mean, you'd have to only really be playing FIFA to think that's old. But I think there are some valid concerns that he for the money we've paid for him and the wage he's going to be on, he has to be one of the best players in the Premier League and one of the best players in our team, up there with Aubameyang. And I'm encouraged that he can be like that, because, I mean, this is a real talent in a team where we've relied on really one player the whole time, and we needed someone in midfield to be able to be a bit more adventurous. I mean, Mikel has played three at the back to accommodate a lot of players, but also to cover weaknesses as well. I think our defence was getting our midfield was getting very easily turned over in the early days, and then I think as soon as the formation changed, I think we were much harder to break against. But now I think it will be tougher, and we could be a bit more adventurous, and we can focus on going forward. And hopefully that is something that we will do, because I think a lot of Arsenal fans, including myself, have been a bit concerned with the lack of creativity. I think we've taken the second least amount of shots in the league this season. I think West Brom are the only team that have taken less than us, and that's obviously concerning. Partey's not going to be the midfielder to create, and he's not going to be an attacking midfield, but he could free up other players in the team. He could potentially, if Mikel Arteta wanted to play him DM, then you could realistically have Danny Ceballos and Bukayo Saka on the other spaces as eights, and being the creativity, bringing the ball up to Willian and Nicolas Pepe and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. You can do that, and I think this signing does allow us to be able to do that. It's a massive pedigree of signing, and I think it was really encouraging to hear his dad, Thomas Partey's dad, speak about Arsenal and speak about how Arsenal were very a very big club for him, and this is one of the biggest moments of his entire life. There were reports in Marca that when Arsenal rang him, he decided to move on the spot, and that's what you want from players. You want players to really be encouraged by your club and really encouraged about joining, and that's a testament to him, and I think we can be very pleased with the signing. And I think a lot of fans are very excited. We still haven't seen him in an Arsenal shirt, which, I mean, for me is like I want to see him in that shirt. Like, I know it's only a little thing, but I think it's going to be very cool to see him finally wear the Arsenal shirt. I mean, I guess the question is, does Mikel Arteta throw him in straight away from the starting lineup against Manchester City? I'm not sure if he will do that. I would, but I know a lot of players do take time. I remember, I know it's a different coach, but last year when Pepe joined, it was always like people were like, "Oh, put Pepe straight in, and then we can like." You want to see the new signing coming. You want to see that shiny new toy come in and do well and get excited by it. I think the first three games that we have, I think, are Manchester City, Leicester, and then Manchester United, I think, are the 3 games. We have Manchester City, Leicester, Manchester United, the next 3 league games, plus 2 Europa League games in between. So there are going to be plenty of chances for him to start. I mean, we have a very thin midfield anyway, but I wouldn't lose your shit if he doesn't start against Manchester City. I think it might not be the right environment to bring him in straight away. But then again, it could be the perfect environment for him to announce himself to the Premier League. So it's going to be encouraging to see, and I'm very excited by the signing. And Arsenal have really got a decent player here who will improve our midfield, and we can go forward now, hopefully being able to be a bit more adventurous in our team selections, and hopefully can really unlock a lot of the other attacking components in this side with Thomas Partey in there. Arsenal's technical director Edu and Arsenal's manager Mikel Arteta had spoke after Thomas Partey signed, and I thought there were quite interesting quotes in there, because I think Edu's got a lot of stick this summer for the way he's handled things. I still think the jury's out on Edu, but I think he deserves some credit for at least getting some players, in for us in a very difficult market. I think Gabriel seems like a good signing at this present moment in time. I think Willian, I'm not really sure about the length of contract. His age is a bit of a worry, but I think in the very short term he will improve us creativity. And then obviously he's brought Thomas Partey in, which was Atletico were convinced that he was going to stay right until the final day, and then Edu turned up to Atletico Madrid with the money in the bank briefcase and cashed it in on Thomas Partey. So, I think he deserves some kind of credit for bringing in these players. He also, renewed Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's contract, which was huge. Bukayo Saka's contract got renewed as well, which was very, very good. And he renewed Gabriel Martinelli, which I think has gone under the radar because of his injury, but that is a massive thing, because that's what Arsenal should be doing. Arsenal should be renewing contracts of their talents that have done really well and doing it quickly. That's why I think if, for example, Emile Smith-Rowe comes into the team this season and does really well, his contract should be renewed very soon. And that's what it should be with any young player. But his quotes were very, very, very interesting. I think he talks a lot about physicality, Edu. So I think he was asked on the squad looking stronger. He said, and I quote, "I think we improved the squad's quality and physicality. Thomas we had in our plan for the future. When me and Mikel sit and talk, I think you get all the players who we really focused on. If you see Willian, he brings us experience and a very special physicality in terms of speed. If you see Gabriel, he gives us a lot of physicality and presence. Danny, quality. Thomas, physicality, quality. And mentally, he is very strong." So, as you can see, he mentions physicality a lot, and I think that's what Arsenal really wanted. I think the Premier League now has changed. I think 5 years ago you could have got away with technical quality higher than a lot of pace and power, but I think pace and power now is such a massive thing in the Premier League that I think having a lot of physical players will be good. Gabriel seems like a fantastic player in one-on-one duels. He just seems to win everything can be very good, and I think Arsenal fans are encouraged. Obviously, still very early days with Gabriel. The signs look promising. And then, obviously, with Partey now, he's going to be very physical and commanding in the central midfield, as well as being able to bring the ball forward. But power is the key word, and I think Arsenal have lacked power for a long time, and I think it's going to be very interesting. It also make us, I think, a bit better on the counter-attack as well. I think Arsenal for years frustrated me going on a counter attack because they would get the ball forward and then just never be able to finish it off well enough. Whereas now I think you've got players who can beat the press, who can dribble the ball a bit further. You've got Pepe, you've got Willian, you've got Thomas Partey now, and can burst forward very quickly and hopefully give it to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to finish off the chance. Or maybe they finish off the chance themselves. But that is something that will be very, very interesting to see, and I'm very encouraged by Edu's comments. He also mentions about Aubameyang, about Saka, about Martinelli renewing their contracts. Because, and I quote, he says, "This is another good point I want to mention because normally people are talking about signing players, but for me and Mikel, we dedicate our time to what we have at home. So we have to renew players. We have to give our respects to the players we have here. So let's do it as soon as possible." And that's key because Arsenal have obviously been a very bad club in terms of renewing contracts. And then you get hamstrung by waiting so long to renew the contracts, and then you have to overpay to keep a player, or you risk losing them for nothing. In the case of Ramsey and Welbeck, so that is encouraging to hear. Renewing the contracts early, so even if Saka or Martinelli explodes in like the next season or two, and clubs are interested, they will have to pay a massive fee to get them because they're young and their contracts are renewed and they have long-term deals. That is the best thing that they can do at this present moment of time. So I really recommend watching the video with Edu because it is very encouraging to hear. It's also key to have communication with the higher-ups, and I think Raul did that well, but Edu is continuing that as well, and I think it's always good to hear what the club's plans are, and they all sound encouraging at this present moment in time. And then going on to what Mikel Arteta said, he talked about Thomas Partey specifically. He talks about technical qualities and positional options. So, but specifically, he talked about formations, which was very interesting. So, this is what Mikel said. He said, "We believe he has the right qualities with his character and his personality, and as well with his technical qualities and positional options that he can give to the team. I think he allows us to play different formations, and he can fit in within those formations at different positions, which is a really good thing to have in a squad where in midfield, I think we were a little bit short." And then he goes on to say, "I have a few things in mind that I want to start to train with the team, and Partey's signing is going to give us a little bit more adaptability and more balance in defending and attacking transitions, and the way we have set up certain structures to attack better in certain moments of the game." So you can see how key this signing was to Mikel Arteta, and it will be interesting to see where he goes from here and what formations he plays with Partey. I think a lot of us are hoping for four at the back, just so we can see an extra forward player going there. But also, I hope it means that we can see Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang going through the centre. I haven't been a massive sceptic about him on the left as much as other people, but I think Mikel kept Lacazette on because he wanted another goal scorer on the pitch, which is completely fine. But I think if you had Aubameyang through the middle, Willian on the left, Pepe on the right, and then maybe Bukayo Saka behind you, you have a lot of creativity in that team, more than you would expect. And Arsenal look good with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang up front. So hopefully Orba can stay up front and we can flank him with two wide players. It may be a better balance to the team. Obviously, that could mean less game time for someone like Edu and Nketiah, but I think if it's for the balance of the team and the greater good of the team, I think it will work. So I think that's something to consider. And with Partey and what Mikel Arteta said, it looks like he's interested in playing different formations, and hopefully we will be more adaptable and a bit better going forward and progressing going forward. So obviously with Thomas Partey joining, a couple of players had to leave. So we sent 2 of our midfielders out. Lucas Torreira's gone to Atletico Madrid, and Matteo Guendouzi has gone to Hertha Berlin, both on loan. There's no option to buy from Hertha, I think, and Torreira does have an option to buy, I think, about 20-25 million. Both sides seem good. I think Torreira won't come back. I think he will stay at Atletico. I think they will really like him there. He's a perfect Simeone player, tenacious, a warrior. I was sad to see him leave because I liked him, but I just don't think he was very good with the ball. I think he was very, very good as a presser, and that was encouraging. But I don't think with the ball at his feet he was very adventurous, and I think that's completely understandable why Mikel wanted to go a different direction. I think Guendouzi, obviously, he's a very good talent, but I think his departure is mainly to do with attitude, and I don't know if Guendouzi will come back, but maybe the year in Berlin will be better. It's a new city, maybe he will mature a bit, and maybe he can come back and fight for a place under Mikel Arteta. I think it is a shame with Guendouzi, because I think a lot of Arsenal fans like him. I think his fiery spirit kind of makes him what he is. But I think if he has a lot of attitude problems that has tried to change the culture of the club, I don't think we need it. We've had that too much in the past, and we don't need it now. So I think it was good to send him out to Hertha Berlin, and I hope he does really well. And I'll be keeping an eye on him in the Bundesliga. Hertha are a very interesting side in the Bundesliga, so we'll see what happens with him going abroad. Torreira, I think he'll do very well at Atletico. As I said, it's 2 players that Arteta didn't want, and they've both gone out on loan. Obviously, it would have been better if we actually sold them for money, so we could try to get Houssem Aouar, but at least they're going to get game time and their value can increase. It's not really a good time to be buying players because to be selling players, because with COVID no one really has the money unless you're Chelsea or Manchester City, so trying to sell these players was very difficult. I think in a normal market Torreira gets sold to Atletico Madrid, and in a normal market Guendouzi does get sold to Hertha Berlin, maybe for a cheaper price. But I think with the market, I think it's very difficult to sell them with the COVID, how it's completely drained most teams' finances that are not owned by a billionaire owner, even though we are. But we done well to get them out and at least get them game time, and hopefully it raises their value next year, and if they don't get integrated back in the team, we can sell them for a good price. So that is the main thing. So hopefully they do well out on loan, and we'll see what happens in the next season with them. So the international break is currently going on, and there are a few Arsenal players, few more Arsenal players now going on to international duty, which is credit to them. Bukayo Saka made his England debut on Thursday against Wales. He was a bit shaky in the first half, but played very well in the second half. Should have scored. He had a really good chance in the second half. Then Maitland-Niles, who's also in the England squad, came on, and he actually played very well as well. He probably could have got a goal as well. It's nice to see some players back in the England squad. I think it's been so long. I think Danny Welbeck was our last player that got in the England squad, and I mean that tells you how bad we've been and how long it's been since we've had England players in the squad. But they had been encouraging. Edu and Mikel for the under-21s is now level with Alan Shearer and Francis Jeffers, former Arsenal player Francis Jeffers, under 21 goals. He's done very well for the under 21s, and I think he's quite underrated, Edu and Mikel. He always looks like he could get a goal. I don't think his hold up play is really there, like the level of Lacazette. But I think he's always a threat, and he always seems like he could get a goal. I think you've had a lot of players in the past, like maybe Chuba Akpom, Benik Afobe, youth players from Arsenal's, like from the academy, who you start up front and don't look like scoring, whereas Eddie Nketiah does, and that's very encouraging for a youth player to come through. So I think he's got a very good future ahead of him. Hopefully he gets something like 10 goals. I think he's got 2 so far this season. He scored against Leicester in the Cup, and he scored against West Ham, the winner in the Premier League, which is very good. And him getting minutes will just improve him as well. So it is a good time for Eddie Nketiah. Other players, said Kolasinac, Bosnia lost to Northern Ireland on penalties in their Euro 2020 playoff. He played 118 minutes, so he played most of the game, so he'll probably be quite tired when he comes back. Bernd Leno played against Turkey, conceded 3 goals, which is not good. So, but none of them were really his fault. So he's got time. He's fine, and it's encouraging to see him start for Germany. Because obviously you got Marc-Andre ter Stegen, but I think he's out injured at the moment. So this is a good chance for Bernd Leno to show his quality for the German national side. Pepe played for Ivory Coast against Belgium in a friendly. He played all 90 minutes, which is good for him. Getting some game time in his belt. I hope Nicolas Pepe does start to come into the side after the international break. I think he looked very good against Sheffield United, which was encouraging. The goal he scored was really good. That was the Pepe that we bought. So hopefully he can get brought in more, and Arteta trusts him. He's a very hot and cold player. It's just about the consistency with him. I think sometimes you look at him and you think, wow, what a player. But then there's other times where you look at him and you think, like, is he interested? Like, he takes a safe option. He maybe doesn't beat his man as well as he can. And it's just about getting that Pepe who's explosive, who can beat anyone and be an incredible player more often on the pitch. Xhaka is obviously Switzerland's captain now, which is very good for him. I saw him give a mistake against Spain, which was a bit obviously concerning for him. Kind of what Xhaka does, doesn't he? He does produce these mistakes sometimes. And then Ceballos played against Spain. I actually watched this game play for Spain against Portugal 0-0. It was an okay game, but he looked very well, and he looked more adventurous on the right the right hand side. He was replaced at half time, but I thought he looked good, and he was going forward, which was encouraging. I think that could be something that we see in an Arsenal shirt as well now with Partey signing, as I mentioned before. So it could be something good to see. So they played for us during the international break, and all of them seem to do well. Saka and Maitland-Niles were probably the standouts for England. But apart from that, I'm just happy that most of them seem to be coming back from international break injury-free. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully they can start growing in the Arsenal side. So finally, I have to speak about the Arsene Wenger interview. Reading it, he's such an articulate man. It's great to hear him speak again. I think that is something I missed when Wenger left, was just how intelligent he sounded, and how it was just really nice to watch his interviews. I think that's kind of come back with Mikel. I don't think Unai Emery was very good at communication, but Wenger has done was always the master at it. It was the communication in interviews. It was always so articulate. His interview was very interesting. He got asked some very good questions. For example, what motivated you? The fear of losing, joy of winning, or the beautiful game itself? And he said all of that, but I must say, in strict motivation, that means there's something within me that pushed me to try and improve, which was always Arsene's way. And I think there was some good credit for Mikel Arteta, which was nice to hear. There was encouragement, because he was asked, what one piece of advice would you give Mikel Arteta. And he said to continue to have a grip on the team as he has at the moment and to go to the end of his beliefs. I think there's a good team spirit and they have a good chance to do well. I believe it will not be very difficult to improve on the number of points they got last season. But I'm convinced Arsenal can be in the top 4, if not more. Why not more? They can be the surprise package for me this year. They bought well, they strengthened the defence well, and they kept the players who were already there. In my last year, I bought Aubameyang. They kept him. They have every ingredient and no real weakness, which is very encouraging to hear. I think he stayed very quiet during the Unai Emery era, and I don't know if that's telling or not, but he hasn't stayed quiet during the Mikel Arteta era, and he's been very encouraging over his former captain and now boss of Arsenal. And I think it's always nice to hear, especially with such a legendary figure like Wenger, to hear him speak well about the team and Mikel Arteta. I don't agree with his comments saying, why not can we challenge for the league? I think we're still way off. Top 4 has to be the priority, and I still don't think we're favourites for that. I think getting back in the top 6 is the bare minimum, but that's something we should be looking at. But it's encouraging to hear that he thinks so well of the team and of Mikel Arteta. I hope we see him back at the Emirates soon, because I think he's been away for too long, and it's not really nice to see him out of the game and out of Arsenal for so long. I mean, most Arsenal fans grew up with him as the coach, and he should come back soon. So hopefully that does happen soon. There was one more question in the interview. If you haven't watched the interview, I really recommend it. Haven't read the interview, I really recommend it. And it's funny because this question is actually from Jose Mourinho. So it's basically he asks about, like, do you want to be a CEO or director of football at a club? Personally, for me, I always thought Arsene Wenger would be fantastic going higher up. He always seemed like he was a great talent spotter, but maybe his coaching during the end was maybe kind of getting outdated. So, but he answered. Wenger says, "No, I would have considered being on the board at Arsenal as an advisor. I believe that honestly there is a deficient of knowledge in the big clubs of top level competition and games of top level sport, and I believe we have seen recently that there are many ways to be successful in football. For example, there's the Bayern way, where the whole success and continuity relies on people who know the values of the club, and they transfer that from generation to generation. Beckenbauer, Hoeneß, Rummenigge, or there are models in England of quick money and quick success. Both can work. I like the fact that a club is first an identity and has knowledge that's transferred from generation to generation. So that's why I saw things that way." So he would have considered being on the board at Arsenal as an advisor, and I think that is something that we should consider in the future. Maybe it will be something that Arteta maybe encourages, or Edu and Vinay maybe consider, but I think Wenger back at Arsenal as an advisor would be good. He's got such an incredible knowledge, and obviously he's doing great in his role at FIFA, but I think if he came back to Arsenal as just an advisor, I don't want him to come back anything to do with the team, but just as an advisor for people on the board, people managing the club, I think it would be really, really cool to see. So hopefully that can happen one day, but maybe he's still a bit too hurt after everything that's happened, because obviously when you commit 22 years of your life, he says it himself, it's like a breakup, and he's wanted to stay away for a while. So we'll see what happens with Arsenal, but it's very good. And obviously his book comes out, I think, in England tomorrow as of recording, so I've ordered mine, so it should be really good. I'm not going to reveal any spoilers now, but I've read some things on social media about it, so we'll see what happens. And that is episode 1 of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. thank you for joining me. I was pretty nervous to do this podcast, but it seemed very, very nice to do it once you get into the flow. So I'm going to try and record these every Monday. We'll see what happens. I've luckily had time this week because I'm not working, but we'll see what happens. But hopefully you stick around with me. Hopefully you enjoy the episode. So take care, have a good day, and come on, you Gunners.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?